Welcome to part 3 of Competency 2. In this video, we will work with percents and ordering values.
Number 1, which of the following is equivalent to 36%? Okay, so what we have to do here is just enter the 36% into the calculator. What do I mean by that? 36 second, and the open parentheses above that gives you a percent. Now, what you're doing is you're taking what's typed on your page to the calculator, then enter. So now it's entered into the calculator as a decimal. The computer automatically, the calculator, which is essentially a mini computer, it calculates it automatically for you. However, when we go to our options, we do not see that representation. So what do? Push your toggle, check to see if you see that in your options, and we do. Therefore, it's verified. This particular calculator saves you from having to put each of them in individually. Okay, each of your options to double check it or do it by hand. Okay, now the TID4 isn't quite as convenient when we work with percents. I do like this calculator for that. Okay, number 2, which fraction represents 33 and 1/3%? Well, let's just type it in as we see it. Okay, what do we need? Second fraction. That sets up the mixed number. So 33, go over 1, go down, and you have your 3. Now you have to tell your calculator, I'm working with a percent. So that's when you do second, open parentheses, okay, and then push enter. It gives you a representation, but not necessarily the form you need. So what do? We push our toggle button, and therefore we have another representation. However, it's still not what we want. So what do we really need to do? Analyze each of these. Well, obviously 1/3 and 3/10 are not the same thing. 1/9, nope, not the same thing. Let's look at C. Well, if we multiplied a third, the numerator and the denominator, by 3, we would actually get 3/9. If you don't see that right away, go ahead, and it's 1/3's already in my calculator, so I'm just going to say, I can't say times 3. But I could say times fraction 3 over 3. I have to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same value, okay, which is the same as multiplying by 1. I push enter, and it no matter what I do, it's always going to do that. See, so that's not helping me. So let's just go fraction and try C. And some of you probably said, oh, why didn't she just put in the given or the option C? All right, so let's push enter. Yeah, obviously it's going to reduce to 1/3, which is what we had. Okay, so then option D, obviously we can tell that that's not going to be the same thing. Okay, now let's look at number 3. Which of the following is not equivalent to 125%? Well, what do? Same thing. Let's actually put that into the calculator. Okay, we have to put 125, then second, parentheses open for our percent. Now we push enter. Okay, that gives us one representation that is correct. We want the not correct. Okay, the not equivalent. So let's mark out D because that's one representation. What do we do now? Push your toggle button. Well, that gives us another representation we can eliminate. Okay. Well, now we have 2 left, B and C. Well, let's check what B is. Just type it in. Okay. 125, arrow down, 100. Okay, push enter, and that gives us the A option. Well, of course, we mark that out because it actually is a representation. So the only one that is not a representation is 0.125. Let's put that in a calculator. 0.125. Push enter. Now it's in our calculator. So we push toggle to check it out. That's actually 1/8. Definitely not the same thing. Okay, so let's look at number 5. Okay. What number is 85% of 220? Okay. So we literally just type this in, and where it says of, that's multiplication. Now that's just something we should know by this time, right? Okay, let's type it in as is. I'm going to clear all these other things out, okay? And let's say 85 second, open parentheses, times 220, push enter. Okay. And there's our value right there. That's what we want, option D, okay? All right, now let's look at number 5. 45.5 is what percent of 50? Now, we need to enter that. Not enter, but rather consider it exactly the way it is written. And that's how we're going to get what to put in our calculator. Okay? So we have 445.5. Well, is your equal. Okay? All right, if I could write a little better. Okay? And then what percent is what percent? So what percent? That's the X. That's the actual question. That's what we're looking for. Of is our multiplication, and then 50 is simply what we're using. Okay, when you look at that and we set it up, we can solve this algebraically. Okay, so divide by 50 on both sides. Okay, mark this one out because 50 over 50 is 1. This gives us something solid to enter in our calculator. Okay, now remember, it's a percent. Okay, that's another little glitch we have to put up with. It's X percent, okay? All right, so when we look at our options, we're still not sure what to eliminate. Well, here's A. A looks like it might work. Maybe, maybe not. Let's put in the calculator and see what happens here. Okay, let's set up our fraction. And 45.5 over the 50, 91. Oh, okay. So if I have 91 and I need to change that to a percent, what do? Second, close parentheses. So change 91 to a percent. Push enter. It's actually 91%. So option A was put in there to literally fool us, okay? It's not that it's totally invalid, but it doesn't tell us the percent. It just tells us the operation. And this actually is incorrect because it should say change 2% when we type it in our calculator. So that's not going to work. And if you see for some reason that in an option, again, you know that they're just trying to trick you visually and that B's are what we need. And then if you think about it, C didn't make sense because of our setup that we obtained, okay, where we have it here in green, where we highlighted that. So that's not going to work. And then, of course, once you see that isn't a possibility, then surely D isn't, okay? All right, let's go on to number 6. Number 6. 28 is 1.6% of what number? Now, this is very similar to what we've just did in number 5. Is the equal, okay? And we would type in 28. Let me write that. 28 equals 1.6% of is my multiplication. I'll just put a dot there. Of what number? Well, that's where your X comes in. Of what number. You could say x and whatever you want to do. So now solve that very quickly algebraically by dividing both sides by your 1.6%. And this gives you what you need to hop into your calculator real quick. This becomes 1. So what do we have? Now, if I could write percent, that's actually here, 6%. So you can actually see, well, that's a little better, not a lot. There we go. This is what we enter into our calculator, okay? All right, so let's put our fraction there. So 28 over 1.6, type in second percent. Now, we're not looking for a percent, but we need that percent because that is how everything flowed and that's how it's actually written, okay? This will give us our x, okay? So push enter and that gives us our value and that would be option B. I'm going to go ahead and just circle it there. Okay. All right. So now let's look at number 7. Order the following numbers from least to greatest. Okay, we are looking for the smallest value first and then the greatest. But the best way to deal with this is just to go through and analyze. Now, we did see something like this in prior videos, okay? Actually, it looks very familiar, okay? So let's see what we're looking at. Well, pi is 3 point, let's say close to 3.4 and it goes on, okay? All right, well, is that the smallest, the largest? Well, I'm looking at a negative 9.3345. I'm thinking that that is smaller. Well, of course, it is smaller. Okay, now that we see that, now that I've said that, of course, we need to look for the most negative and pop that in first. Well, we have two negative situations. So let's put negative second radical 80. Yes, it's 80. Put that in the calculator. And we need that in decimal form, so push your toggle. Okay, that's not as quite as large as the negative 9.345, but we know that the smallest value is right here. And then we know right after that, we should have the negative square root 80. All right, so if we don't have that, mark it out. Well, that's A and D. Uh-oh, and C. Hmm. So that wasn't too difficult. In my opinion, they're just seeing if are you reading it? They want the least. Which one is the most negative? That's what they're trying to do. You with like fool you visually with B and C because it might be very tempting to put the negative square root of 80 first as the least value. Okay, so now we have that. Well, I'm going to skip to the chase, okay? That's a smart way to handle this. You're taking a test. Let's verify over here on this end that 20 over 3 is greater than pi. Well, I've already written over here what pi is, and I did that for a reason. So let's pop that 20 over 3 in the calculator. And remember, push your toggle. There you go. 6 is definitely greater than 3. So option B is what we needed. And we didn't even have to deal with all the other things in between because either they've written their problem incorrectly, okay, because we know for 100% that pi isn't the least. And then we know now that 20 over 3 can't be the least, it's the greatest, okay? And then we know the difference between the negative 9.34 and the negative square root of 80. Okay, verified, we're done. All right, so let's look at number 8. Order the following numbers from greatest to least. So let's be savvy here again. Obviously a negative number can't be greatest. I mean, that's Just we're looking for greatest. That's just not reasonable. So eliminate anything that starts with a negative. Okay, now we need to double check the first couple of numbers against the last few numbers. Okay, I mean, you could go through each of them and check them. I wouldn't do that. Okay, so let's see B. I have 2 here. Well, this equals 3. I like that. Okay, now C says that we have 3, but is 11 over 4 less than that? Or even, well, I'm wondering because this is 2. Oh, that doesn't work. Wait a second. B's out. What am I thinking? We're not doing least to greatest. We're doing greatest to least. So it can't be B because that would be 2 and a little more than 3. No, I don't like B either. So now we're at the point of actually verifying C. All right. So we know that the first one is 3, 15 over 5. So put your fraction in 11 over the 4, push enter, and your toggle. There you go. That makes sense. You have 3, then 2. Okay, now what do? We check which ones are the most least. Are they in order? Well, we see -7. Now we have to check the negative square root of 100. Well, we know that's -10, and -10 is less than -7. Okay. And if you don't see that right away, use your calculator. Second radical, put your 100 in, and yes, it's -10. Okay. All right. So option C has been verified. And what they're really trying to see is this, yes, this is a simplistic question that looks complex. And they're just trying to test, are you very aware of what you're reading and what does it mean? And do you have that very basic foundation of your number line or your x-axis, however you want to see it? Okay. All right, this is the last question in this particular video. I wanted to thank everyone for watching and being supportive and the nice comments, and especially all of you that are subscribing. You guys are the best. Happy testing, guys.